Well, thank you so much, Bob. Thank you, Governor Brad Lindsay, Kim Graves, I saw out there, Patrick Kelly, Andrew, thank you for your work. I just look out there, I don't see rain, I see endless trees, I see these beautiful flags, and I see the gravestones of the fallen heroes. And I see all of you who are willing to come out here, rain or shine, every single year to pay respect for those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for us. At a place like Fort Snelling, we feel the gravity of the sacrifices, people who put everything on the line. As many of you know, I've attended this ceremony for years, but it's gotten more and more personal for me the last few years, since my dad, who did return home after being stationed in Europe during the Korean War, is buried here. And I got to do the research, which I've shared with you in the past, of those buried around him, including those that lost their lives in World War II. When my dad got home, he wrote columns, he got to cover the Vikings, which was fun, and he once wrote a book called The Heroes Among Us, about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And I don't think there are better words to describe the heroes who, through their sacrifice, built a future where liberty prevailed over tyranny. We get to live that future. We owe it all to them. And today, I know we have a special focus on Normandy. Almost 160,000 troops, fathers and brothers, sons and grandsons, stormed the beaches that day. More than 4,000 didn't make it home. Among those 4,000 souls was Navy Machinist Mate First Class John Anderson from Wilmer. Shortly after the attack on Pearl Harbor, John felt the call of duty and joined the Navy. He was below deck that day checking the sand traps on the ship when the ship began taking heavy fire. While he was in the engine room, an enemy shell struck that part of the ship, killing him instantly. For 70 years, his family never knew what happened to him. They were told his remains had washed out to sea, but his nephew did some research and they found him in an unmarked grave in Normandy. He came home and he received the hero's welcome he deserved, and he is now laid to rest next to his parents in Wilmer. So we do honor the fallen today, but we also do it by honoring those who follow in their footsteps, their families, those that are left behind. We do it by, as someone said yesterday in Little Falls, mourning their loss, but living lives worthy of their lives. That means making sure that they get health care and jobs and homes when they get home. It means taking care of things that are plaguing our veterans now, like those exposed to toxic burn pits. Just this last year, coming together across the aisle, we were able to pass the PACT Act. And for me, it was about one family, Brian Muller's family, his wife, Amy, who had been stationed next to one of the notorious burn pits in Iraq, got very sick, got pancreatic cancer, left behind her husband, her parents, and 3 little kids. Her husband swore that he would make sure that other people who followed in her footsteps got the health care they needed. And we introduced one of the first bills on burn pits. From there, we now have the PACT Act, which takes care of now 1 million strong claims that have come before us as of last week for the burn pits, but also for those exposed to Agent Orange who still haven't gotten the health care they need. And I'm going to end, finally, yes, end with the story of a guy I got to spend some time with last week, Earl Meyer. Earl was part of that greatest generation like you, sir. And Earl actually signed up during World War II, but he was only 17 and they wouldn't let him in, and so he could only go in the Merchant Marines, and then the Merchant Marines rejected him because he was too skinny. He went home to St. Peter, the same with you. He went home and he gained 25 pounds in just a few months. He got back, got in the Merchant Marines, was on some very dangerous missions there on ships, came home, farmed in St. Peter, raised a family, 3 girls, and then was called again to serve in Korea on the front line. His regiment, his unit, his company were in a very dangerous position, and his company, only 4 people survived. He was treated at the battlefield for shrapnel in his leg, and the medic said, "You, sir, are going to get the Purple Heart." Well, that medic never made it home, as far as we know. And when Earl got home, he just put it aside, like so many of our veterans, but his family didn't. And when he got in his 90s, they said, "It's time." And we worked through all of the bureaucracy because the records were lost. And just last week, Earl stood at the Gustavus Chapel, where kings and queens had spoken, stood on that stage and got his Purple Heart 75 years later. And he turned to me and said, you know, as he looked at the 1,000 people out in the chapel, this really wasn't that big a deal. Reminding us of all we love and all we've lost. By honoring Earl with the Purple Heart, we also honor those in his unit who didn't make it home. We honor those who are before us today, whose graves you will visit. So to all our service members and veterans, it is on us now to lead lives worthy of those lives lost. It is on us as citizens to remember that what unites us in these polarized times is bigger than what divides us, and to honor them by serving our country in every way we can. Thank you very much.